if you play with Legos or you got Lincoln Logs or, you're out in the garage trying to, wrench on your car, there's a really good chance that there's another opportunity for you. And it's not lesser than, it's just somebody getting an opportunity to also talk to you. And I think that entrepreneurs like you have finally, gotten the same messaging, and that common thread is getting in front of these high schoolers.
100%. We we look for farm kids. We look for kids that are into cars, that are tearing stuff apart, trying to put it back together, whether they're successful or not. At least they're trying.
Yeah.
Those are the type of kids we look for, especially for our service technicians.
Welcome to the Oxygen Podcast. Over the next 20 minutes, dive into the world of business with tips, tricks, and success stories straight from the trenches. Our guests bring real-world advice and tools that serve as their oxygen on their journey. Get ready for a breath of fresh air on this episode of the Oxygen Podcast.
Hi, Oxygen. All right. So welcome back to the series that we're doing here in 2024 with our high-end entrepreneurs. And I got to tell you, this might actually be the interview that I do with an entrepreneur that I've known the longest in my business owning journey, because Steve gets to tell you that he knew me when. So hopefully we'll avoid those stories. But he might sneak this one in. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Steve Ortner today. And I actually knew Steve when I owned one of my first businesses. And Steve kind of got to mentor me along in one of those very first journeys. And Steve is one of the very few people I know today who actually also knew my dad, and my dad had a ton of respect for it and the way he did business. So I'm super excited to do this interview and introduce you to Steve Ortner, the owner of Absolute Machine Tools. So Steve, welcome to the Oxygen Podcast.
Thank you.
All right, so we are here to talk about specifically two topics, but this conversation might go a lot of different directions because, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the way you do business and just the multitude of things that get affected in your industry. So we're specifically going to talk about trades and how the maybe lack of availability in the trades is affecting your business. And then the decision that you made to sell your business to your employees. But give us a little bit of background on you and Absolute, and tell everybody what your business is.
Okay. I started Absolute Machine Tools at the end of 1988, believe it or not. So we just completed 35 years in business. It's morphed over time into, we are a national distributor and importer of CNC machine tools. So computer controlled metal cutting machinery. We service a variety of manufacturers, anything from little tiny Swiss type small parts you can hold in your hand to big giant military equipment. So, and we sell all over the US. We have 3 locations. We have one in our headquarters in Lorain, Ohio. We have a location in Mason, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati, and Livonia, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit. Today, and we sell pretty much direct to customers throughout the Midwest. So Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia. We sell service with our own people. Through the rest of the country, we sell through distribution. So we have independent distributors that sell for us in other key markets, and they usually service the equipment too. So in that capacity, we're just functioning as the importer.
All right, awesome. Well, so that's like a mini tiny overview on the masterclass that you could deliver. So that's awesome. All right, so one of the things that I know is going to be of value here is your ability to talk about how trades look different today than they have over the 35 years. And I think that, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's of course how people enter into trades or how young people choose trade over college today is of course going to be different because of the pandemic or because of social media or whatever. So give us your take on why we are struggling right now to find trades in general, and how do we kind of get over this hump that we are seeing both in our kids as parents, as people who have the ability to influence young people, and then as employers who are listening to this. How do we show up better to influence this compared to what it looked like 35 years ago when you were first hiring people?
Well, I think we have the same problem that most companies have, whether in manufacturing or not, and that is finding people and finding people that want to stick with it.
Mm.
We've become very involved at the high school level, particularly the Lorain County JVS and EHOVE in Erie Huron County. We're trying to catch some kids when they're sophomores and juniors. We have a couple, 2 or 3 interns working for us right now. So they're working for us part-time while they're going to the vocational schools. We would actively right now take another 1 or 2, just because they all don't stick. But we've had better luck doing that than trying to poach employees from other companies. It's just an investment in time and money. And it's a work in progress. I think what's different today, when I was in high school, I think the guidance counselors were a little more in tune with there was things to do other than go to college. And today, from our involvement in these schools, I think there's a real problem. I'm not going to say all of them, but in general, there's a problem with kids being pushed to you just need to go to college.
Yeah.
And I think it's because there's not an understanding on the educator's part what else is available out there that pays just as well, if not more, with zero, maybe some time investment on the part of the kid, but not financial investment. If anything, they're getting paid, while they're learning, not paying to learn and then hoping they can recoup that. So we never did that. I mean, if we rewind the clock 10 years, we weren't really probably 10 years ago, we started working with the JVS. Prior to that, we did the old, run the ad in a paper, do whatever, trying to find people. Of course, today I don't even know if anybody looks at a newspaper to find a job. I don't think so, but we're constantly trying to hire. As I said, we would hire people today if we could find them.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that we do a significant amount of interviews with people that are in the construction, which obviously another dominant trade that is constantly hiring, and they say the same thing. It's a perpetual pursuit of new talent, and for people who do it well, even we do. It was ironic. I gave a scholarship out 2 years ago, and ironically, you and your wife were giving a scholarship in the same school I was giving a scholarship, right? And it's happening at the high school level. The organizations that are making an imprint are doing it in high schools. They're going further upstream. And it's not necessarily just in the machine trades, it's in the construction trades. They're trying to influence young people from a different perspective because they need to be shown that there's something other than this, that there's an opportunity to, if you play with Legos, or you got Lincoln Logs, or you're out in the garage trying to wrench on your car, there's a really good chance that there's another opportunity for you, and it's not lesser than, it's just somebody getting an opportunity to also talk to you. And I think that entrepreneurs like you have finally gotten the same messaging, and that common thread is getting in front of these high schoolers.
100%. We we look for farm kids. We look for kids that are into cars, that are tearing stuff apart, trying to put it back together, whether they're successful or not. At least they're trying.
Yeah.
Those are the type of kids we look for, especially for our service technicians. We are always we could do a lot more service work if we had the people to do it. We turn down a lot of work just because we can't. So but to home grow those takes a while. It's almost a 4-year process to get, and some kids are quicker than others, but we can't turn them into a service tech in a year. So we usually send them out with our more senior people, for training in the field. They get to work for us and see how things work for a couple years part-time before we bring them on. I wish it was just a faster process. I think everybody does. And then, part 2 is how do you hang on to them? Especially today. There's a lot of influences out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even goes beyond young kids, right? That we've invested in, and that goes to employees and whatnot. What do you think that you have learned as somebody who's just further down the path that you would tell an entrepreneur who's starting that you wish somebody would have told you? I mean, I kind of said it in the beginning. My dad had a ton of respect for just the way that you did business, and I learned way more from you than probably you even realized I was learning, because I was just so damn young and just watching what you had going on in awe. So what do you think you would tell somebody that is brand new and thinks that this is going to be easy, which we all know is 100% not the case?
Just to start a business?
Yeah, or just maybe in it and thinking, what the hell was I thinking? Like, what kind of advice do you wish somebody would have given you?
Well, geez, I could go through there's a lot of advice I wish I would have gotten. We undoubtedly made a ton of mistakes. That's a tough question. Could probably go on about that for a long time.
I mean, that's interesting too, that's the first thing out of your mouth, because I think a lot of people aren't willing to say, wow, I made a lot of mistakes. And I think that, while you think about this for a minute, I will just say your bluntness was very refreshing when my ex-husband and I were learning. Like there was a lot of times you looked at us and went, what the hell are you two doing? Right? Because we were learning and we were doing dumb things, and we needed exponential amounts of grace in what we were doing. But by the way, we were surrounded by some amazing people in that journey, but there's not a whole lot of people who are willing to be candid and blunt like you are. So, that's one thing that I think a lot of people miss. But what do you think? What do you think some of the other things are?
Well, back to the mistakes, I would say you're going to make them. Try not to, of course, but you're going to make them. So, I guess if you go out of your way trying to avoid mistakes, you kind of get bogged down and trying to be perfect, and that's something you're never going to achieve. I guess the other thing is, and I didn't have to have anybody tell me this, but looking back, it's risk versus reward.
Amen.
We took a lot of risk Was it risky enough to put you under? A couple times it probably was.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, if you don't take a risk or you don't push yourself, I don't know. I'm not sure, if you'll make it 35 years or how successful, you'll be. I can give one example. We looked at this, it was a big automotive project, and we don't do a lot of automotive, but it was six machines. It was automation. It was a couple $1 million, and it's like, automotive spends a lot of money on our equipment, and we don't do a lot of business in that space. And everybody at the time, this is probably 11 years ago, we were probably, I don't know, maybe 50 people. So all the team leaders were real nervous, trying to figure out, how do we cover our butts, doing this? Are we gonna, we're gonna lose money? We're gonna make money? We're gonna, this is kind of risky, just because of the requirements. And I finally just said, you know what? We just got to do it. Otherwise, how are we going to learn? How much money can we lose? Are we going to lose enough money that it puts us out of business? Well, no. Okay, then let's just put our flag in the ground, sink or swim, and then we're going to know next time around what we did wrong or what we can do better. And we did it. Was it very profitable? Not really. Did we lose a bunch of money? No. We probably just didn't really make money at the end of the day, but we got the experience. So
Amen.
Sometimes you got to do that stuff. You just got to say, let's just do it, see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that risk is what gets you to even agree to be a business owner to begin with, right? And we start to shy away because you start to get nervous. And yeah, risk is one of my favorite words ever. I love that.
Well, the older you get, that's tougher to do that too. There's things I did I would never do today, but
yeah, young and dumb, right?
Right.
Young and dumb. Okay, so let's stay on that for the next part here. Talk to me a little bit about the decision to move into selling to your employees. When we talked about having this conversation, this one is one that a lot of people in my realm are actually considering now. The adjustments to our economy and just where people are at in business. This seems to be a hot topic right now, and there aren't a lot of people who do it well. So I am curious to hear just where your mind was, how this came up, things that you do and don't. Give me the lowdown, where you're at in the journey, and why you thought this was right for you and Absolute.
Okay. I'll probably ramble on here a little bit.
I'll stop you. I'll give you the high five.
We just completed our 5th year as an ESOP. Employee stock ownership is what it is. So I did sell the company to the employees in 2019, and it probably started 2 years before that. I'm going to say if you are thinking about it, it's going to take you at least a year, maybe 2, to nail down what you want to do and how you want to do it. I'll also say there's probably 1,000 ways you can configure an ESOP. So I'm only going to speak to what we did. I go to some meetings with peers, other ESOPs in the area, and there's way more than you would think.
Yeah.
And we just kind of talk about things, how we're doing stuff, why we did it, why we're doing it. You can also change your ESOP plan as you go too, to some extent. So, first of all, an ESOP's regulated by the Department of Labor. So it is, the government is watching over it, really on behalf of the employees. So you got to play by the rules, of course. you think of it as a giant 401k in a sense. But how we got to the point of becoming an ESOP, it was probably 7 years ago. I would have been 50 at the time. I have two sons that are 26 and 23.
That's crazy.
So I go back, my oldest would have been 19 and my youngest would have been 16. And I can just tell you that neither one were interested.
I think that's important, right? Like we don't ever think that's going to be real and that our kids aren't going to want this like thing that we think is our baby. That's really important, I think, for a lot of people, that it's okay that your kids don't want your business.
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't push them into that. My oldest did a year of precision machining and he said, you know what? I don't like what you guys do.
Right.
I said, okay. Oh, I'm not going to make you do something you don't want to do. You'll probably end up, if you're not into it, you're going to run it in the ground anyway. So, my kids weren't interested. I'm meeting with my lawyer. We're talking about taxes. He's a tax attorney. We're doing all this stuff. And he says, so what are you going to do with this place? I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're 50 years old. Well, what's it going to look like 10 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
Your kid's going to get in the business. I'm like, no. And he's like, well, if you wait till you're 65 and decide you want to do something, your options are going to get pretty limited. You're going to be either close it, auction everything, sell it to a competitor. There's not a lot of choices. And he said, did you ever think about an ESOP? I said, what's an ESOP? And he said, well, you can sell the company to the employees. The company, there's detriments to obviously trying to sell your company on the open market. As soon as you put it up for sale, everybody's going to go, oh, did you hear they're going out of business? The place is for sale. You don't want to do business with them. They're done.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that. And I also had a lot of, I still have, we have a lot of long-term employees that are, 30 years with us now. If I sold to a competitor, there's no guarantee they're going to keep people. They'll keep the ones they want, get rid of the ones they don't feel they need. So, all right, I said, how does an ESOP work? And he explained it, and he said, it's going to cost some money to set this all up. But here's the deal. You'll never pay federal income tax again. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, as part of the government's, social engineering projects, if you become an ESOP, the company pays no income tax. You can make $10 million. Your federal tax bill is zero. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, that's their way of bringing, they want more people to be in an ownership role or to have a vested interest in the companies they work for. And I said, well, I don't get it. Why would they do that? And he said, it's the government. It's they came up with this back in the 70s. And so we set it up as a 10-year buyout to me. So we're about halfway through and we paid for it. We looked, I financed it. So, I'm carrying the note. You could have a bank do it, but with a bank comes lots of strings and not much flexibility. I decided that I financed it. I did it at 3% interest. Looking back was probably that's a gift.
That sounds more like it should have been prime plus. Yeah. Way to go, Steve.
It's all right. But anyway, we looked back 5 years at what we paid in federal income tax as an average. So every year prior, so it'd been 13 through 18 or 14 through 18. We looked at how much we paid collectively, divided it by 5. And we came up with that number as my yearly buyout. Now the company had to be evaluated too. Actually, the years, so the company, third-party appraisals, business evaluation, all that stuff. So you can't cook the books. It was all third party. There's third party administrators. There's a trustee that works for the employees on behalf of the employees. So we're now run by a board of directors, which is 5 people, me being one of them, one other absolute employee, and then 3 outsiders. And all major decisions are approved by the board. And, the trustees, of course, made aware of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So every single year the company gets evaluated. Again, third party, the trustee hires the evaluator. And then we determine a stock price is determined based on mainly company performance, but also outside factors, like are companies your size or type being bought, being sold? Do they, is there what's the acquisition market like?
Yeah.
So our first year, when we completed the first year and had our evaluation done, they set our stock price at $6 a share.
Oh, jeez.
Which, okay, everybody was getting stock. They don't have to pay for the stock. They don't have any liability. They just get it based on their pay. So, and the other thing we did for that formula was I capped the pay at 150,000 because I didn't want, a salesman that makes double that versus the receptionist that makes, 30 or 40,000 a year. I didn't want there to be such a disparity that a few people got all the shares. So we capped it at 150, and that keeps everybody, somewhat level. I found out most companies don't do that, but we did. I was
just going to say, just for people who are unaware of like what the environment that you live in, that disparity can be large. Like $150,000, it does not come near what the income potential is for some people who sell for you. Like that is an oddity. So just for people who are unaware of what this industry is, that was a necessity.
Right. At the end of our second year, our stock price was $25 a share. At the end of our third year, it was $100 a share. At the end of the fourth year, I think it was 110 or 112. Obviously, the rate of, we're not going to quadruple our stock price every year, but and the fifth year we just completed. We won't have our evaluation done till May or maybe even June. So I don't know what our stock price will be for 2023.
What does that feel like? Let me pause you for a second. What does that feel like to watch because I think a lot of us are aware that we have success, right? I've watched you over the years. I mean, I'm 29 and holding, so I clearly was not even born when you started this place. But like when you know that you're successful and you have the ventures that you have, but then to watch a third party come in and not only evaluate you, but then evaluate you and watch it grow again. Tell me what it feels like to have that success measured in front of you by a third party.
Well, I guess it's validation, right?
Yeah.
You got independents looking at it and going, yep, based on all the numbers, your stock price is this. And that's probably how it works on Wall Street, I guess.
Well, but I think it's, especially to hear you speak about your employees, right? Because knowing you the way that I do, this is reinforcing the employees who really do mean a lot to you, their livelihoods. Like you've really taken care of people who have dedicated their entire careers to you, and to watch it foundationally build like that, I would I would imagine that that's very validating that you've really taken care of your people in a way that it didn't have to go that way.
It didn't have to. I could have,
Yeah.
gone another 7 or 8 years and said, I'm
Yeah.
tired.
Peace out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Peace out.
I'm out. Thanks for your
Yeah.
efforts.
Yeah.
We're gonna close up shop and ride off in the
Yeah.
sunset. But I don't know, personal to me too. If it can
Yeah.
live on for, it'll be in somebody else's hands at some
Yeah.
point here. But if it can live on and keep going, that's great.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So what did you learn in that process? Like, did you do things that you would have changed now? Obviously, it's still staying where it is, but what did you learn
In the ESOP
going through?
process,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
a lot of little things. I think our whole outside advisor group has completely changed from when we started, all the way from attorneys to trustee to third party administrators. We've changed them all. Um,
That trustee component is so incredibly important. And I heard you say that you sit in that community of other ESOPs. That is incredibly valuable advice, I think, from my perspective, to really seek out that group and find them and find a trustee. I've seen some really rough trustees that don't necessarily have the acumen that they need, but they hold the seat. And I think that person is very influential.
yeah, so the law firm we're using out of Columbus, they recommended some trustees. We interviewed, I don't know, 3 or 4. Our first trustee was kind of forced upon us when the initial attorney that set it up said, here's the guy I use, he's your trustee.
Eh,
Well, after a couple years, he was just a rubber stamp for whatever the attorney wanted to do. Yeah, I don't know. I would say, so we had to find our own way with some of this. We switched law firms. When we switched law firms, we switched trustees. When we switched trustees, the trustee switched the third party evaluation firms.
mm.
I mean, she saved the company a bunch of money.
Oh, wow.
So, if I had it to do over again, I did not talk to any other ESOPs when I did it. I didn't go to anything. I didn't, there's lots of meetings. There's like a Northeast Ohio ESOP group. I would have reached out to some other people that had companies of similar size. They don't have to be in the same industry even. We're in with construction companies. Janata and Herner's an ESOP. Discount Drug Mart's an ESOP.
Yes.
Much bigger. Right down the road from us, Betcher Industries was an ESOP. I would. It's funny. I didn't pay any attention. I didn't. When people said they were employee owned, I didn't really pay attention. I didn't really care. If I had to do over again, I would have reached out to some other people or went to some meetings or just reached out direct to some other companies that were ESOPs and asked, who they were using, what did they do, what didn't work.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing with it is, so right now, just for showing up to work and doing your job, the people that are pretty much maxing out their shares every year, so they're around that 150,000 mark. At the end of year 4, they had about $50,000 in free money. Now it's like a 401k. You can't just take the money out, unless you want to pay a bunch of taxes on it. And we have a buyout plan because we can't have a run on the bank either, right? Like,
Right.
hey, everybody's going to retire at once. Write us all a big check in 1 year. Well, there's a there's a 5-year vesting to get in the ESOP. So just like a 401k. First year, nothing. Second year, 20%, 40, 60, 80, 100%. Once you're 100% vested, all that money's yours. So your incentive to stay is,
Yeah.
if you don't stay, you got money that you're only going to get 20 or 40 or 60% of. So there's an incentive to stay. And then there's a buyout period. So
Do you
after 5
think,
years, you're fully vested. You decide you're going to move on to another job. You decide you're going to retire, whatever. We have basically it's a 5-year buyout. So we're going
yeah,
to pay you out over 5 years at the stock price that you
we're in it.
left at.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that that plan helps your recruiting at all?
it helps, because like I said, it's like a big 401k, but you control it. It's
Yeah.
not like a 401k where you log in and go, oh, I'm invested in medium risk and I lost a bunch
Yeah.
of money, or you have a hand in it. As far as employee retention goes, we honestly thought it would be a much better tool than it is. And
Mm.
I think our problem is the under 30 crowd. We've had a few young people leave, and we've tried to talk to them and go, you understand, the ESOP, you're getting extra money, you're getting, all this is a retirement plan. And I hear comments like, I don't count that until it's in my wallet.
Ooh.
And like I said, it's the under 30 crowd. The
Sure.
older people, they get it.
Yeah.
I think one of the big changes has been people look at everything now like it's their money. So they're like, hey, why'd this guy spend so much money on a rental car? Hey, why are we doing this? It's it's been good as far as
Yeah.
that go. And I think the more let's say mature people, they get it. And it's made a difference in the company's bottom line, and
Yeah.
even I think overall performance. It doesn't stop people from leaving necessarily, which
Yeah.
I thought we would have, like 100% employee retention, and we don't get it. So
Steve, if you had 100% employee retention, you and I would be having a discussion about why you've got that issue.
I know, but that's what we want. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that in and of itself is a whole separate issue. Nobody is immune from retention issues right now. And that's why, we do some of the work that we do, because I think there's never a perfect recipe. And you combat one issue and you end up with another one. It's almost like playing whack-a-mole right now. So it's a whole thing.
well, I guess my advice would be communicate, communicate, communicate.
Mhm.
So we did the ESOP first year, $6 a share. Everybody's, so what?
Sure.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. And we tried to, you know, preach the gospel, but we ended up hiring an outside communication firm
Yeah.
to take the data, put it in a fun and easy to understand format, and we have mandatory twice a year. They're about an hour-long rah-rah session with this outside company.
Yeah.
To put things in perspective, and that's helped too.
Yeah.
Does it cost? Yeah, it's a cost, but I think internally we just weren't getting it done.
Sure. Yeah. Too close to it. Well, I mean, if you're a parent listening to this, I think if you heard anything, it's talk to your kids about long-term 401k investment, and that there's alternatives outside of college. If your kid likes to play, Lincoln Logs and Legos and wrench on their car, please, 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 make sure they understand there's other opportunities out there, because that's a huge one.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm going to say probably 80 to 90% of our employees are not 4-year college grads.
So you are not the first owner that gets on here and talks about that. And I think that that is incredibly relevant when we've got parents listening. You know, there's a huge, huge push for that piece of paper. And while I will not ever tell someone they shouldn't go to college, I think you need to go to college for the right reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna say pretty much all of our people that have a 4-year degree are in the front office. You know, like our CFO, he has a 4-year accounting degree.
Correct.
You know, our one of our marketing people has a degree in marketing. You know, I mean, but all the people getting it done. I think I have a salesman with a 4-year degree in I don't know, it's something sales related, but I don't even care.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about here is even that pursuit of that 4-year degree still seems to miss the practical applications when they are involved in my clients like you. You know, like right now we've got marketing interns coming here, and what the experience they're gaining in working for someone like me is going into someone like you and understanding that the end product is in a machine shop, in an automotive location. And that means you get dirty. Yes, you build marketing, but your end result is still a very tactical, tangible product. You, yes, sit in front of a computer and build, you know, beautiful art and marketing, but you still have to be able to speak to the business component that you are applying to. And I think that there's a lot, not so much the accounting. Like if you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be an accountant, I agree with you. You got to you got to have a piece of paper. But even so much as marketing, you still have to be able to understand the practical application that you are marketing.
That's right.
Like,
You got to
we
know what
seem
you're
to be,
marketing.
yeah, we seem to have this huge misconception that your fancy piece of paper for marketing negates the fact that you need to know what the product does. You know, like there's still a piece of equipment that has to be marketed. You need to understand the features and the benefits and what it does and the practical applications. And so we bring marketing interns in to understand the actual acumen to the business. And it floors people when those then interns get there and can understand what it's like to have practical application. We have got to cover that gap somewhere.
Agreed. I don't know how to do it. You know, we've got marketing people with degrees, but they didn't know a thing about what we do. How do you market something you have no understanding of?
Yeah,
or who your target audience is.
Exactly. You don't take a car salesman and put them on a car lot and make sure that they don't have a driver's license. Like they've never driven a car. That would be ridiculous.
Right. Most people that would walk into our place off the street and we take them out and show them what we do and what we sell, they would just be bewildered. They'd be like, I never seen any. I don't know what this stuff does. I don't.
Yeah.
Who uses this?
Yeah. Yeah. So for people that are listening, that intangible component. Yeah. Send your marketing students my way, because I'll practically send them to somebody. I'll send them to Steve's shop and you can go hang out over there. All right, let's talk about something else. Of course, I told you this was going to be way longer than 20 minutes, but that's okay. I think it's good. Talk to me about the culture component that you see in your industry. Obviously, you are exposed to multiple cultures and doing what you're doing. Talk to me about what you think is a big miss in the world right now when you watch the news and like Taiwan right now, obviously they've been through a huge election. They've got influences from China and how their government influences what's going on in China. When a normal American watches the news right now, what do you think they miss in world economics that you see because of the industry that you're in?
Well, we just be one small example. Taiwan is important to us because about 80% of our product comes from Taiwan. maybe 10% comes from South Korea, 10% from India, a little bit from Japan. I know that adds up to more than 100%, but that's
That
where
darn math again gets you every time.
that's where our product comes from. So, right now, things that affect people. So they're watching the news and they see these Houthi rebels firing missiles at container ships in the Red Sea. Well, so what? Well, as of right now today, it's disrupted 20% of shipping container traffic worldwide. Okay, we saw from December to January ocean freight rates double. So unfortunately, it's a worldwide economy. We don't make everything here. So, something you're looking at right now is imported. It got here in a shipping container. More than likely, it didn't come by an airplane. Who eats that? The price of that container doubled in 1 month. Well, I'm guaranteeing whatever's in that container, that cost is getting passed along all the way to the consumer. The consumer ends up paying for everything at the end of the day. Yeah. So, world events, you have to be, you have to dive into it a little bit. Yeah. I bet nobody knows that. Anybody know the price of shipping containers doubled in 1 month? You can't get shipping containers because they're disrupted. The ship's got to go around Cape Horn at South Africa. It takes an extra couple weeks and like 1 million gallons of fuel to do that instead of going through the Suez Canal. Yeah. All those costs, all these delays. So what are they going to do? I mean, if you can't cycle your ship, you gotta, the ship costs the same, the crew costs the same. You're only getting 50% because of the extra time. You got to double the price.
Yeah. It's such a macroeconomic issue. And I think that we all are so bombarded with watching the news, right? Like there's some days I just don't even want to turn it on. But then there's other days where it's a necessity to watch it for reasons just like that. First it's the cost of getting something here, then it's the cost of lack of employees and education and all those things. You kind of start to wonder where the relief is.
There's no relief.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for that, Steve. Thanks for ending on that note. That's amazing. Thank you for your positivity. All right. So like I said, I knew we were going to be able to talk for forever. Tell everybody where they can connect with you, because I know that one of the things that is awesome about what's going on with you and Absolute now is kind of the adjustment in where people find Absolute and you. You guys aren't doing as many trade shows now. You're showing up on social media a little bit different. Where do people find you and all of your infinite wisdom?
Well, our website, www.absolutemachine.com. That would be the big one. We are on all the social media. I'm bad about it, so I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram, but we do all those things. So you can search us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Wow, look at you.
Or X, excuse me, X.
Yes.
Of course, we're on LinkedIn too. The company's on LinkedIn. If you're looking for a job, you can find us on Indeed. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us all over the place.
Okay, I will make sure all those links are in the notes for the podcast today, and you can click on there and invest yourself in Absolute, and only as long as you promise to work there for 5 years. Okay, we'll make sure all those are posted in there. Okay, Steve, so I end all of my podcasts and I ask my guests, what do you need next? As owners and entrepreneurs, sometimes we have a hard time knowing and naming what is the one thing that you need next. So if I ask you, what is the one thing that you need next?
Vacation.
You know what? This is why you and I have known and been friends for this long. We started this conversation with that. All right. That's very honest. But a lot of us don't do it well. So, all right, good. Steve, I really appreciate your willingness to jump on here and talk about some of these big topics. So thank you so much. And we tell everybody to take just a little bit of time to breathe life in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.